Hello, Masters of Speed. I'm Terramaster, and we're back with the third part of the full Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel Duel Academy GX Box, what a name, review. And for part 3, it's the machine episode. And for the machines, I have with me Odd Toxin of Odd Toxin Gaming. I guess it's Toxin of Odd Toxin Gaming? What's going on, dude?
What's going on, man? What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to Terramaster's channel.
Hey, Team JDG, the channel. But yeah, so you're here because you agreed graciously to be my co-host on the machine review, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I've been doing my homework too, man. I didn't know what a lot of these cards did until you were like, hey, I need you to talk about this stuff. And I'm like, sure, let's learn it.
All right, perfect. And you would want to learn it for the new format anyway, right?
Right, I was going to learn it no matter what, but like it gave me the initiative to actually take and learn the cards that I wasn't really planning on playing, like the Ancient Gear cards and the Cyberdarks.
There you go, exactly.
I guess first on the list is like Ancient Gear then, right? It's
Yes.
what you want to go over first.
Yeah. We've decided to
Alright,
start with the
cool.
Ancient Gears, yeah. So obviously we've got the Golem, and which is kind of the boss monster, but the ultimate boss monster is the ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. Now, this does take a lot of effort to fusion summon, but are you familiar with the skill Ancient Fusion yet?
Yeah, I've read Ancient Gear Fusion. It's a really, really cool spell card, and seeing that it's like intertwined into this skill is really neat. Alright, so once per duel, you can discard one card to fusion summon an Ancient Gear Fusion monster from your extra deck, and you have to use monsters on your field for the material, which is like the big downside of it, I feel like. But if one of those materials is Ancient Gear Golem, you can also use materials for your hand or deck. So that's actually kind of insane. But you have to have like Ancient Gear Golem on the field to be able to do that. Your opponent doesn't take battle damage for the rest of the turn, and any battle damage your opponent takes from that monster you summoned is halved. So a couple of downsides with it, like more downsides with most of the skills that we got in this, but I still think it's really cool that we actually like got the Ancient Gear Fusion as like a skill with a couple downsides to go with it.
All right, so look, there's something I like to do with these skills, which I started doing in the hero review episode, which everybody watching this has already seen, but obviously at the time of recording, it doesn't exist yet, so you haven't. So what I do is I take a skill and I play a game. It's called the restrictions versus benefits game, okay? And we count the restrictions that the skill has, and we count the benefits that the skill gives you for those restrictions. All right? So are you ready to play?
Sure.
All right, so we'll read the skill one line at a time, and I'll start. Okay, so once per duel, that is the first restriction. All right, read the next part.
Fusion summon one Ancient Gear Fusion from your extra deck using monsters from your field as fusion material.
Okay, so there is one benefit, which is you get to fusion summon a Ancient Gear monster, but there's also a restriction in what he just read, which is you have to use monsters from your field. The next part is, if one of those monsters is an Ancient Gear Golem monster, you can also use monster in hand or deck as the material. So that's 2 benefits for 2 restrictions. But I want you to read the last few sentences here for me.
Your opponent takes no damage for the rest of the turn, and any battle damage your opponent takes from that monster is halved.
So that's 2 more restrictions. So if you're keeping track, I'm also keeping track with my fingers for Toxin can't see me, but
you can't see me either. I also have 4 fingers up and 2 fingers on the other hand.
there you go. So we have 4 restrictions for only 2 benefits. Now, if we think about speed duel skills that are meta like right now or in the past, they did not have more restrictions than benefits, right? So
Right.
the issue that I see with a lot of the skills in the box, as I talked about excessively in the hero episode, is literally this, that the skills have too many restrictions and not enough benefits. And I think this skill fits that category where it's interesting, it's got potential, but there are too many things that holding it back from being actually, top tier. I don't know
I
if you
think this
agree
is
with that. Yeah.
I think this is one of those skills where like it's getting the treatment it is because of like Cocoon. And like, could you imagine if this was just a fusion, like the fusion spell once per duel?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that would be equivalent to Cocoon, but it seems like they don't want to do that, which is annoying because Cocoon already exists and it's not going anywhere, right? It's already been errata. They already added 1 restriction to it, but that's the only restriction it has.
Right, and then now we have to fight that kind of skill with a skill that, in this case, Ancient Fusion, which has 4 different restrictions on it.
Exactly, yeah. So there you go. I'm glad you understand. while we're talking about crawler skills, might as well talk about the second one as well and play
This
the
is my
same
favorite
game.
one.
Yeah, middle-aged mech. So this one is literally copy-pasted from Duel Links, I think. Am I right?
100%. Yeah.
All right. So let's play the game. So I'll let you start off this time. So go ahead, read the first bit of the card.
So all ancient gear monsters gain 300 attack.
Technically a benefit.
Yeah, that's a benefit, all in all.
Yeah. All right. Each time a monster's normal summon set, place 1 counter on this card. That's really nothing. So go ahead, read the next part.
If you tribute summon an ancient gear monster face up, you can tribute this card instead.
Yeah, so that's 2 benefits. If the number of counters is equal to greater than number of required tributes, right? So that's actually no restrictions for 2 benefits. Now, that sounds really good, but you know what the issue with that is?
What's that?
It becomes a continuous spell, so it's easy to out.
Right.
In addition to that, it's slow, right?
Very.
Because it takes you 2 normal summons to get to where you can summon a monster worth summoning, which is obviously the Ancient Gear Golem.
Right, and it's also very susceptible to Breaker and Cosmic.
Yeah, exactly. So your opponent can literally wait until you have 2 counters on it and then just get rid of it before you have the chance to use it.
Right, and that's the entire time you've just been using it to clog up your field.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too. So there you go. The thing is, even though it has more benefits and restrictions, the conclusion here from me, and let me know what you think, is that the benefits are not good enough. Right?
I think I agree with the fact that it's slow and that the benefits aren't really that great, but you have to think that middle-aged mechs was also played in Duel Links to a point where it was like one of the best top-tier decks. I feel like maybe right this second, because we don't have any good special summon targets, it's not like the greatest thing with Gear Town, but like in the future, it has a lot of potential. But right now, like you said, it's too slow.
Yeah, it does have a lot of potential in the future, only because of the fact that we could get better Ancient Gear monsters, right? Whether that's Gadgetron Dragon or that's Reactor Dragon, which would be obviously the best one.
Right. Dude, if Reactor came to the game, that'd be absurd.
That would be absurd. You know what? I wouldn't mind it, though. I'd be okay with it, honestly.
I love that card. That card is so cool.
Yeah, me too. All right, so why don't we just talk about the monsters now? So Golem itself has that special summon sickness that you mentioned.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then I'm not going to say this anymore after this, but all Ancient Gear monsters have this effect, for the most part, that your opponent can activate spell trap cards in their damage step if they attack. So there you go. Golem also does piercing, so nothing like crazy there.
He's kind of like a weird boss monster in that thing, because like, yeah, he just does piercing and makes it to where like he's Armades, but it's also like the stat line for him is really cool too, because he's 3,000, so even if he does get Floodgate, it's going to be one of those cards that's like really hard for your opponent to like out while he's in defense mode.
Right. Yeah, if it gets Floodgated, if it gets Book of Moons, Sphere Mode, whatever it is, your opponent will probably not be able to run it over in battle because of that defense. So yeah, you're right. That's a very good point. So the stat line is actually removes one like weakness some monsters do have. Then we got Ancient Gear Beast. Now
this is in my opinion one of the strongest cards to come in the Ancient Gears package.
Yeah, I agree. Mostly because this is the card that can also negate effects of a monster it destroys by battle. So if Apprentice Magician is still a thing, there you go. Beast takes care of that. And not only that, Ancient Gear Beast is actually only level 6, so it only needs 1 tribute normally, which means that, I'm skipping around a little bit here, but if you look at Gear Town, that means you can summon Ancient Gear Beast without tributing if you have the Gear Town.
Right. I think that's really, really good, especially if we're not even like talking about the other skills. I mean, we're talking about SPA with Gear Town, like making this card not being able to be Book the Moon at all with Gear Town being a normal summon itself, also having like Cyber Dragons and having Allied Justice Colossalus. Like, it's definitely one of those cards that become like really hard to out in that deck.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And now let's talk about a couple of bad cards.
Yeah, plenty of bad.
Ancient Gear Soldier, it's literally too weak to be used, right? I don't think
anybody's gonna play this game in the game.
Nope.
If you are playing it, you have balls of steel, and I respect you.
Yes, exactly. Ancient Gear also is not really doing anything. Like you can special summon it if you have an Ancient Gear monster, but like why would you do that?
And not only that, but you're special summoning in an attack position, so you got to do something with it that turn.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, what's the point of this? Okay. Ancient Gear Engineer, which has a cool effect, but again, I think the stat line is too weak, right?
Yeah, I feel like the fact that it like being a tribute one without Gear Town becomes an issue with it, and like you said, the stat line in general is just weak. Even if you are normal summoning it with Gear Town, it's still 15-15, and a simple breaker just climbs it.
Yeah, like Breaker without Killer. Like
Yeah.
Breaker doesn't even need this power up. Yeah. Ancient Gear Knight is actually like one of the decent stat line ones. That's level 4, but the issue is it doesn't even have the effect on the first turn it's summoned. You have to.
Is this card our first Gemini?
I think so, yeah. When I saw this in the partial leak, I thought we would get more Gemini monsters, but unfortunately we did not. So
Unfortunate.
it's literally our first and only Gemini, which is
Nice.
sad. Like I was really hoping for like some of the good Gemini monsters, but that's probably a video for another set.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
Most definitely.
Ancient Year Gadget is something I think was very interesting.
Oh, I actually really like this card.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot of potential, but not right this second.
Right. Not right this second. Like I did try testing it in like some Ancient Gear decks, and it just doesn't do enough. Right.
Whenever you get the declare gadget effect, when we get the cards that get effects whenever there's gadgets that are attributed for it, that's when this card really shines.
Yeah, that's when the card will be actually good, but not yet. Not yet. And then we move to this weird one we got. Toon Ancient Gear Golem. So the entire community, this is story time, was thinking like, hey, what are we going to get as our Gear Town target, right? And this is what we ended up with as our Gear Town target. So, and me and you discussed this before we started recording, but we don't think it's good. And like, I'll let you go into like why we don't think it's good enough.
All right, the only big difference between this one and Ancient Gear Golem is that you can special summon it, but the downside is that it has summoning sickness when it's summoned.
Yeah.
So you can't attack the turn that it's summoned to the field. So it makes it really, really bad. Because you're supposed to go aggro with Gear Town whenever you're cheating out the monster, but this card makes it to where you can't be aggro with it.
Exactly. Then we have Ancient Gear Castle, which is literally just middle-aged mechs on a card. Which
right.
I don't know why anybody would ever play that and not just play middle-aged mechs instead, but sure. We have Gear Town.
I can see people like playing it at 1 in the decks where they're using that skill, but other than for that, no. It doesn't get to get Cosmic or Breakered.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it's too slow, like we already mentioned, right? Because it only gains counters on normal summon, so you can only do that once per turn.
Yeah.
There's also Gear Town, which we've been talking about how Gear Town needs targets. So that what does that mean? That means that essentially when Gear Town is destroyed, you can Star Summon an Ancient Gear monster from hand, deck, or grave, and that's why we're like, we need a strong beater of a target for that. Unfortunately, the best we got is Toon Ancient Gear Golem. So really, Gear Town's best use, I think, if there's any, is the first part of the effect, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what it is. Like Gear Town, you use with cards we already have, like Breaker and Double Cyclone, maybe something like Fairy Wind, and you can try to build something with it. But like in my experience so far, like nothing it has can compete with, first of all, the old decks like Moth, but also it just seems non-competitive with something like Cyber Angels. So just from that perspective, yeah.
The biggest thing about Gear Town in this format is just the whole you can tribute for 1 less tribute, and that's the only thing, in my opinion, that's good about it.
Yeah, and to show you what we mean, I'm actually going to go to a sample deck right now of Ancient Gears. So, like, it's really sad that this is about the best I could come up with. And it's kind of what I said, right? You have Gear Town, you have Double Cyclone, you have Breaker, and you're essentially trying to use your Gear Town to summon your Ancient Gear Golems for free, right? Not for free, for 1 less tribute, so for tributing 1 monster, and that can be either the Zoma, the Cyber Dragon, or a Breaker that's left over, whatever you want it to be, right?
Right.
Or just pop in the Gear Town and special summoning the Toon Ancient Gear Golem. But again, in all the testing I did, it's just not good enough. Even if you play the skill Ancient Fusion, right? The issue is you're still putting a lot of resources into 1 boss monster, And you have to already have a Toon Ancient Gear Golem on the field for the skill to even send monsters from deck, right?
Right.
So it's like you have to first of all already have Gear Town, resolve Gear Town. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that this skill worked with Toon Ancient Gear Golem. Because I think it's like...
Yes.
It just says materials...
Golem monster.
I see. I didn't read the monster part.
Yeah, so you would send the actual golem from your deck or hand. And send the Toon from field, but like that's still like so difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
Right? And then the reward for it is basically a monster that does no damage this turn. And does half damage the turn after that.
I mean, it's not going to do any damage this turn anyway.
Right, yeah. Yeah, literally, it can't attack anyway, so what's the point? Yeah, and then there's Spellproof Armor, which I figured was probably the better skill to use in the end. Like, don't even worry about the fusion, was kind of my thought. Like, just make your Ancient Gears immune to Book of Moon and things like that, but obviously then you can't use Breaker, right? So it really creates its own issue of like, okay, you can use Spellproof, but then how are you going to destroy your Gear Town? Like, running stuff like Fairy Wind, in my opinion, it's just, you're playing a bad card in your deck for no reason, right? Like, Breaker is still a good card. So, like, in my opinion, any deck that forces you to play bad cards, you better have a really good payoff, and Reactor Dragon would be a good payoff, but Toon Ancient Gear Golem is not.
No, not at all.
Yeah, not even.
Not even close.
Yeah. All right, I'll go back to the review deck here. So yeah, that's essentially the Ancient Gears. Let's just move on to some of the quote unquote Crowler stuff.
Although, we get Mechanical Chaser.
Yeah, Mechanical Chaser. This card is really for Spellproof, right? Like,
it also is for the one Heavy Metal Raiders deck because it's a Dark Machine too.
Yes, I always forget about that one because it's so bad it makes you start the duel with literally one less card in your hand.
Yeah, that skill could have been so much better than what it was.
Yeah, I don't understand the amount of... We should play the restriction game with that one just to see what comes up someday. Okay, but yeah, Mechanical Chasers is essentially machine support for the old machine decks. I guess that's the best way to put it. There you go. For some reason, Trojan Horse was with the Crowler cards. I guess because it summons Ancient Gear Golem.
Yeah, that's the only reason I could think. It's like, we want to throw this card in here, but we don't know where to put it. So, yeah, Crowler, you can just have it. Yeah, Crowler, you can have it. Statue of the Wicked is a card Crowler actually played, so that kind of makes sense, right? But it's a bad card, in my opinion. Right, he destroys it with Heavy Storm in the anime. We don't have that card. We don't have nice cards like Heavy Storm. We have Little Storm, which makes Gear Town miss the timing, by the way. Yeah, I know. Oh, boy. We have Damage Condenser, which is also bad. So, like, not only do you have to take a hit, you also have to discard a card. Discard a card, right. Yeah, so why... Too many downsides to actually make it good. Yeah, exactly. Miniaturize. We talked about this beforehand. Yeah, we talked about it a little beforehand. This is a card you just never used. Again, they threw it in here. Yeah. It's neat. You can use it during the damage step. But that's the only thing cool about it, I guess. Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing it does. It's a battle trick, but like, Speed Duels isn't really in a place where we have too many battle tricks that are used right now. Like, we literally have Shrink, and it's barely ever played, right? Right. So why would you play this instead? Especially because it's susceptible to Jinzo. Yeah. So why don't we just move on to something that's better, and that's the Zane cards. Right. Yeah. I think the Zane cards have a little bit more potential than the Crowler cards. And not only that, they look cool. They also do look cool, yes. Starting with the coolest of all, the card that actually just ended GOAT format, some people think, and that is Cyber Dragon. Yeah, this card's insane. It's going to be in like a lot of different Speed Duel decks that you see in the format, machine decks, pretty much any deck that needs a special summon beater. Yeah, it's going to be really good. It's a 2100 special summon that can just like set up your board presence without you even needing to use your normal summon. Like, that's so good. And all it requires is your opponent to have a monster. And not only that, the Cyber Dragon, if you happen to have 3 of them and you combine them together, they actually form this really big monster called Cyber End Dragon. Yeah, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon ripoff. Yeah, exactly. It's basically Machine Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, right? Yeah. And it does piercing damage, so it's really good for killing.
And to give us a way to summon this, they actually gave us a skill called Forbidden Cyber Style Technique.
Which is a really cool name for a skill. I'm not going to lie there. That's a really cool name.
It is. So, you ready to play the game?
I'm ready.
All right. I'll start us off. So, activate this skill once per duel. Restriction, once per duel. All right.
You ready for the next restriction?
Yes.
If your life points are 1,500 or less and you control no monsters. Is that 2 restrictions in one?
That's literally 2 restrictions right there. So you have to be hurt. You have to be down to 1,500 or less and have no monsters. All right. Then we have a cost. So that's not a restriction. So reduce your LP to 50. And then here's the benefit. Here's the only benefit. Special summon up to 3 machine cyber monsters. I don't know why you would ever summon less than 3, but sure. From your hand deck and or graveyard. They each become Cyber Dragon, Machine Light, level 5, whatever, and cannot be tributed. Oh, look, another restriction. So 1 benefit, and we added a 4th restriction of cannot be tributed. All right, go ahead. Read the next part.
This turn, you cannot normal summon set except fusion summoning, so there's another restriction.
This is another one, 5.
Nor attack except with fusion monsters.
6. And then destroy any monsters summoned by a skill during your phase. 7. So that is actually the worst score I've ever seen on a skill.
Yeah, 7.
7.
Oh man, to 1.
7 restrictions and 1 benefit.
There is something I do want to bring up about this, and you mentioned it a little bit. It's the up to, so up to 3. So if all your zones are taken up, you can actually summon 2 or 1, and so that gets you the Cyber Dragon out. That way, if you have to emergency go into your Chimera tech, it's there.
Right, that's true. Fair enough. Like if one of your Cyber Dragons gets banished somehow and you're only running the 3 Cyber Dragons as your Cyber Machines, right, you can still go into Chimera Tech. I guess that's fair. But yeah, it's just, there's just too much, there's too many restrictions. Like, and the problem is, it doesn't even give you polymerization. You still have to draw polymerization on your own.
Right.
Like that's what makes it even worse, is that you still have to have a card to fuse them together. But yeah, I digress. Let's just.
I'm sure we could sit here and complain about this skill all day, honestly.
Yeah,
there's just so much that has to go into it.
Yeah. All right, let's just talk about some of the other cyber cards, right? Some of the other cyber machines that can be used with it. So we got Cyber Dragon, which becomes Cyber Dragon while on the field, which is neat, but there's not enough, in my opinion, to like actually make this card playable right now.
No, not this second. Like potential in the future, but not right this moment.
You know, I think I would see a lot of potential with this card if we actually had Cyber Twin Dragon.
Yeah, definitely.
But not only with End Dragon. Yeah. There's also Cyber Network, which I think you know more about this card than I do, so I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, this is like a game-changing trap card. It kind of like turns the deck on a little bit. It's cool that we actually got a good trap or slash spell card that works with Cybers, because I was worried we weren't going to get any. Yeah. You destroy this card during your third standby phase after activation. It's a continuous trap card, so once per turn, if a Cyber Dragon on the field, you can banish a light machine monster from your deck, which is really cool because you fill up your banished card pile with it. And when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon as many of your banished light machine monsters as possible. And if you do, destroy all spell and trap cards you control. So it kind of like floods your field with the Cyber Dragons after you banish them, get your materials to the field without having to pay the hefty cost of the skill. It's just time consuming. It's a lot like the Middle Age Mech skill and the card that goes with it, where it's going to take you a couple turns to set it up.
Yeah. My issue with it is really that we have no interaction with the banish pile right now.
Right.
And also, it turns off your battle phase. So
that's the other big thing.
Yeah, so it does become very slow. So like it's not good enough right now, but I think if we get more Cyber Dragon support in the future, this could be playable, right?
Right. Well, it's also one of those things where if you are playing the double cyclone or the breakers in the deck, you can send it to the graveyard sooner than you want. So it can just banish the Cyber Dragon, breaker pop it, bring out the Cyber Dragon from banish at that point. But like you said, you don't get your battle phase the turn you use that. So yeah, exactly. It just, there's too many restrictions on it for me personally. It's like if it was a skill, it would be a bad one. Yeah, definitely. And not only that, it's just one of those things where we don't have enough of the other cyber spell trap cards and cyber fusion monsters to actually make this like a legitimate card to play in the format. Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's move on to some of the other not Cyber Dragon monsters. So you've got Cyber Valley, which is actually a card that's got a lot of potential. Not just install, but like also for like decks that want to like potentially turbo out something, right? Right.
So like you can essentially have it stall, yes, like because if it's
It
attacked
ends
into
battle phases.
yeah, it ends battle phases, which in speed duels we know is ending the turn, right?
Right.
So if your opponent attacks into this, their turn is pretty much done. And then the second effect is where you can turbo into stuff, where you can get another monster on the field, which by the way, it can be used with tokens.
Right.
So you can remove this and another monster, and you basically get to draw 2, go into whatever your combo is. And then I don't think the last
skill
effect is very good.
If you use that with the skill, you can pay your life points down to 50, tribute that monster you summoned to draw 2 cards.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean,
And
you won't be able to do anything else. But
it's also a cyber machine monster, and they don't get their effects negated, so you can summon it with the skill and still get to draw the 2.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. So I mean, it's got some potential. But the last cyber card monster I want to talk about here is Cyber Phoenix, and this one's pretty cool, right? Because it first of all stops targeting spell traps, so it kind of does some of what Spellproof Armor does, which is it'll stop Book of Moons from targeting your machines, or like maybe even Nightmare Wheel, which Spellproof Armor doesn't do. So that could have some use, right? And also it's kind of Dekoichi, where if it's destroyed by battle, you draw a card. Obviously, it's not as good because you can't just like flip it and draw on your turn. But I think this might actually see like some kind of play in some machine deck, like if not now, maybe later.
Bad. It's definitely not bad.
It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, right? So I mean, it's a maybe, right? Like maybe if you're actually running the Zane skill, you can play this as one of your cyber monsters, but honestly, I don't know if I see it. Okay. Now we get to actually, before moving on, I do want to show what a sample Cyber Dragon deck would look like. And the best way I could think of to burn yourself down to 1500 was Cosmic Cyclone, obviously, but also to use Volcanics, because you have life point cost for Shell and Wildfire. So essentially the deck is put pressure on your opponent with these big monsters, right? Take damage using your damage, self-damage effects, or maybe your opponent will just hit you, who knows. And then you basically have to have polymerization in your hand when you're there.
Right.
And then you activate your technique and you try to win the game right there with Cybernetic Dragon. So, like, hopefully your Cosmics can clear the back row and your Wildfire has cleared their monsters. And then you're kind of ready to just kind of go for it at that point.
Right. And I do like the idea of mixing Volcanics in with this thing. That way you can, like, get to your life points a little bit faster. You're pretty much turboing through your life points, and I like that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best thing I could come up with. Do I think it's good? No, I think you should play pure Volcanics, which is for the next video, but it's just, this is the best I could come up with for it. So, it is what it is. Back to the review here. Now we're going to talk about the deck that you've actually been doing homework on more than anything else. And that's Cyberdark. So I'm gonna let you lead the Cyberdark discussion.
So the Cyberdark cards are actually really interesting monsters. All are dark machines, which is a little bit different from the Cyber Dragons, which are light machines. And they also coexist with dragon monsters, the baby ones, not the fusion ones. They all work with level 3 dragon monsters from the graveyard, but the fusion works with any dragon monster in your graveyard. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I like the deck a lot. I think it has potential, but somebody with a bigger brain than mine is going to have to break the deck.
Yeah, fair enough. Me too. Somebody with a bigger brain than mine too.
Horn is a cool one to talk about. It's one of my favorite ones. That's the first one.
Yeah.
And he does piercing when he equips, so you summon him to the field, equipped a level 3 dragon monster, so, Cyberdark Claw is a good target, and then it comes with Exploder Dragon, which is another great target for the deck.
Yes.
And so, like, both of those are really strong. Armed Dragon level 3 comes in the format as well, so that would also be a really cool target for him. And he gains their attack, which pretty much, if you use Hunter Dragon, that's what, 2,500 attack points?
2,500, yeah, if you use Hunter Dragon right here, yeah.
Yeah, and that's crazy. And I think Claw also gets him up pretty strong as well.
Yeah, Claw gets him to 24. Yep.
Right. So this deck literally just becomes big beaters, 2,400 attack monsters from one normal summon.
Yeah.
like I said, Horn inflicts piercing damage. The next one is Edge. This one can attack directly, but when it does, the attack is halved for the damage calculation. So this is kind of like 1400 direct damage to your opponent every single turn. And if they can't deal with the 2400 beater, like, what are they really going to do about that?
No, yeah. And if it tries to destroy it by battle, it saves itself one time. So it's kind of resilient. I think all of them are.
Yeah.
So there's also that. Then there's the worst one.
Yeah, Keel. We were making fun of this guy before we even started. You have to play that one in your deck no matter what because of the skill. But this card itself is like, it sucks.
Yeah,
it's 300 damage and that's it. But the best card out of the Cyberdarks are actually Cyberdark Claw. And like, it's not canon, but it is a good target. So if this card sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you target a Cyberdark monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. That's the first line of text. That's like really good to mention.
Yes.
So you get to recycle your materials back to your hand if you need them. And then the other effect can only be activated once per turn, so one of these two effects. And the first effect is you can discard itself from your hand to add one Cyberdark spell trap from your deck to your hand. And that's adding your fusion spell from your deck to your hand, which is Cyberdark Impact. And like, the Cyberdark Impact actually isn't all that bad. Cyberdark Impact is like, we could have gotten a better Cyberdark spell, but I'm happy we got Impact at least.
Yeah. No, yeah, we definitely at least got that. Like, we didn't get any of the broken Cyberdark spell traps, but at least we got something, right? Like, it's not the worst. It's playable.
Right,
and then
exactly.
the good thing about that is Claw will set itself up in the graveyard for you if you use that effect to then facilitate your other Cyberdarks. So that's not bad. And obviously there's this last line of text, which is an interesting little tidbit I'll talk about when we go to the sample deck.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. During damage calculation, if a monster is equipped with this card battles, you can send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. Yeah. So, whenever I first read this and thought about Speed Duels, one of the first things I thought about was Blue Eye's Ultimate Dragon.
Yes.
Sending that to the graveyard and then equipping it with the fusion, because that targets any dragon monster in the graveyard, Cyberdark Dragon.
Right. So the theory with that is to make your Cyberdark Dragon become 5,500.
Right, exactly. And that's just by itself, not even considering its effect, because it gains attack equal to the original attack, or gains 100 attack for each monster in the graveyard.
Yeah. So there, we talked about Cybernetic Dragon as well, which is essentially Horn, Edge, and Keel, so these three here. And that's why you want to kind of get your Claw and your Impact going as soon as possible. So as soon as you have access to these three, you can go ahead and go into your Cyberdark Dragon. And then hopefully by that time you set up Blue Eyes Ultimate. But you see the issue with the deck, while I'm talking through this, is how much setup everything requires, right?
It's a big setup. I didn't even go over the skill now that I think about it.
Oh, you're right, yeah. Talk about the skill, yeah.
Yeah, Cyberdark style is like, once per turn, choose 3 Cyberdark monsters from your deck. Your opponent randomly adds one of them to your hand. So you shuffle the other 2 back into the deck. Cool. Then you can use this skill 3 times a duel. One when your life points at 3,000, one when your life points at 2,000, and one when your life points are at 1,000 or less.
Yeah. So essentially it's guaranteeing you Claw, because that's kind of what you want to start with, right? So you activate a Cosmic Cyclone. You can then search for your Claw unless you already have it, in which case you can then try to get Edge or Horn instead. So really you're just trying to, the skill is what can get you actually set up, right? Where like, let's say I drew Claw and Edge to start. Now I need Horn or Keel, right? So I would have my skill after activating Cosmic Cyclone. I would have my opponent give me either Horn or Keel, and then get the other one, maybe Foolish Burial or something like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's really the thought. But Cyberdark Impact isn't the only way to summon Cyberdark Dragon. There's also one more spell card that can do the same thing.
Yeah, and then personally, I feel like it's better. You just summon one Dark Machine fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed up from your field or graveyard. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like this card's just like better because not only can you use it for the Cyberdark Dragon, but you can use it for the Chimera tech.
Yes.
So yeah.
Essentially, you can just play a Zane deck and have Cyber Dragons with your Cyberdarks, and then play Overload to go into whichever one you feel is better for the situation.
Right.
And that's kind of the best thing we could think of for Cyberdark. Why don't we go into a sample deck here to kind of show what that looks like. So again, I said you have the Cyber Dragons, and then you have multiple copies of all the best Cyberdarks, which are Claw and Edge, right?
Right.
And then you've got one each of the ones that you're only playing because of the fusion, which is
exactly.
more cute, right? Now,
Piercer and Burner.
What was that?
The Piercer and the Burner.
The Piercer and the Burner. Yeah, the Burner of only 300 burn damage.
Yeah.
Great burner. The rest of the deck can essentially, obviously, Cosmic is there to get your skill live. Foolish is important. Future Fusion is important to get your monsters set up in Grave. Overload we just talked about. Impact we just talked about. So essentially, the Book of Moods can be whatever you want, or they don't have to be there. Yeah. The deck can be 20 cards, right? You can cut 2 books and have the last card be whatever you want.
Nah, just take out all the books, play 1 copy of Allure.
There you go. Easy. Easy. Toxin just solved the meta. All right. So, I mean, the extra deck here, I do have, just to show, instead of Blue Eyes Ultimate, which we did mention, so I'm glad we did, but I do have VW XYZ and BW XYZ, because Union Combination, as long as you use Claw's effect to put these 2 pieces in Grave. So shout out to Tensi for pointing this out. But as long as you use Claw's effect to have these VW and XYZ in your Grave, you can actually summon V through Z using Union Combination. Which, honestly,
this
a really good
mastermind. This man is a mastermind for figuring this out.
For real.
Like, I didn't even think about that.
Think about this. Once per turn, no cost. You just banish a card on the field. No cost. That's amazing. Like, the only thing that would make it better if it was a quick effect, but then that would probably be too good. So, yeah. So, I mean, if you want to try summoning V through Z, I think is what people call it. If you want to try summoning V through Z, then maybe try Union Combination with this deck instead of Cyberdark style. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, try something cool.
Yeah, try something cool. Just mess with it.
It's
right?
Speed Duels, baby. We're just trying to have fun.
Exactly. There you go. All right, let's get back to... That was the last sample deck, since the rest of the cards are really just like generic dragons or spell traps. Right.
Right.
So we did talk about Hunter Dragon briefly. It's literally there to be a level 3 1700 dragon. Exploder Dragon is literally there to be a level 3 dragon that has a good effect. I think. I don't... There's probably some other use for it, but I haven't really thought about it yet, because like we have DD Warrior Lady, which is probably better in every way, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because DD Warrior Lady really just outshines Exploder Dragon in this format.
Yeah, and Exploder Dragon just came out. Like, maybe the only benefit is that Exploder Dragon can be like loaded into with Giant Rat, but like, I don't know, how good is that really?
It's not that great.
It's not. There you go.
It's like Giant Rat was going into Hyper Hammerhead. Now it just goes to Exploder Dragon.
Yeah. Not to mention, like, it's better than Eudoria, right? So if you're running Viral Infection with Zombina, maybe this is your new like Zombina target. But
right.
That's really the only things I can think of for it. Let's talk about Different Dimension Capsule. Now, you were actually surprised to see this card in here.
Yeah, I didn't take notice to it actually being in the format when I was looking over all the cards. I looked at this list and I was like, wait, Capsule's here?
Yeah.
And yeah, like I was saying, it's Boneless Gold Sark.
It is. It's Boneless Gold Sark, which is, you know, bad Gold Sark, right? Because it makes your card vulnerable to being left in the banish pile forever. And considering this is Speed Duels, why do you want to wait 2 turns for something when you're not guaranteed to get it?
Exactly. We've had Shard of Greed in the format for how long?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Waiting 2 turns in Speed Duels is bad. Speaking of waiting 2 turns, Future Fusion.
Yeah, another one.
Yeah, the reason Future Fusion isn't as bad as Shard of Greed or DDC is that you actually only have to wait 1 turn to use the graveyard effect. I mean, to use the Foolish Burial effect, let's call it, right? So, the Fusion monster comes on turn 2, right? But essentially, most people are playing Future Fusion to send cards from deck to grave. You're not... Like, the Fusion monster, if it makes it there, is actually like the second benefit from Future Fusion. The main benefit for Future Fusion is, and always has been, even before the errata, if you remember that, in the TCG.
Yeah, I do. 2012 is when it got banned from how good it was.
Always has been, exactly. So Future Fusion was always used to send monsters from deck to grave. And that's kind of the use it's going to see now.
Yeah, Future Fusion got banned because of 5-headed dragon being able to send 5 generic dragon monsters from your deck to the graveyard.
Yeah, Yeah,
And so
I
then
can't believe that was ever allowed. Yeah.
Red Eye's Darkness Dragon was at 3 at the time, so you just swarmed the field with those, and then just kept XZ summoning. It was crazy.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Alright, we also have Chowder Shadow Gardener here. Where, I don't know. What do you think of this card? It's really like a stall card, right? But like...
Yeah, it's a trap monster. Trap monster decks can play it, but...
Yeah. But like, it gives you 0 aggressiveness, right? Which is kind of the issue with it.
Exactly. It's the same thing as like the Aqua one. The Aqua Slime.
Yeah. Metal Reflect Slime.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's essentially just a defense card and doesn't do anything else. Like, your opponent can run into it and crash. So, like, maybe it's like removal, but like, it's not, because your opponent is choosing to remove their monster at that point. So, I don't think it's very good for trap monsters. There's also Straight Flush now,
which is really cool.
Yeah. Now, the only potential I see for this card is side decking against something like Crystal Beasts, right?
Right.
So yes, it's a good side deck card. I wouldn't run this in my main deck.
No, not in main decks. I wouldn't see anybody having a good reason to run it in their main deck.
No,
like
definitely not.
And then it's like, the other thing is if you do use it and your opponent's playing Waking the Dragons, like, you're a fool.
You set on multiple Waking the Dragons in one go. Yeah.
Even if it's just one, just straight flushing a Waking the Dragon just seems like such a like screw you kind of play.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a terrible play. So like, hey, if you're Crystal Beasts and you're having straight flush sided against you a lot, maybe you just side in Waking the Dragon to trick your opponent, right? There you go.
Right.
Because the thing with Waking the Dragon, normally the problem was that your opponent would target one spell or trap at a time, right? So you would literally sometimes have to have them hit exactly the Waking, or exactly draw the Waking when they had their back row removed. But here, you just set 2 cards and have a Crystal Beast, face up as your 3rd card. Your opponent is going to straight flush. Yeah. Because they don't want to get hit by Raigeki, they don't want to get hit by Conclave. So they're going to want to get rid of it. And then you just trigger Waking, and all of a sudden you've got yourself, a Cyber End Dragon, or a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, or a TER, whatever you want. Right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's got uses, but it's also got a huge weakness in Waking the Dragon. So, and then finally there's Memory Loss.
Now, Lucas Gaylord, most people call him the Clown. Yes. He was talking a little bit about this card. He really likes it and thinks it's very good. And so, when he says he likes a card, usually I look into it because I think he's also very intelligent when it comes to this game. So I was looking into it, and I have to agree, this card is bonkers.
The thing is, right now, the staple monster that will use summon effects most often is Breaker, right? And if you're using this for Breaker, why not just use Book of Moon or Floodgate?
True.
The issue is, other than Breaker, there's not a lot that uses on summon effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not a lot of monsters just stand there in attack mode and activate their effects. But this is one of those cards that I think has a lot of future potential. Where like, if we get monster effects that are like once per turn, you can do this, right? And those monster effects are going to be used every single turn. So essentially take Destiny and Dragoon, right?
Right.
If Dragoon was something that was constantly placed in attack mode because it didn't restrict the battle phase, right? And it's once per turn, so if your opponent was going to use it every turn, then something like Memory Loss not only will be able to negate it on summon, on the turn it's summoned, but it can also negate it later, right? Which is what would potentially make it better than Floodgate Trap Hole.
True.
So it's one of those cards that like, does it have future potential? Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's all. Like right now, there's cards better than it just because of what are you dealing with, right?
That's true. Yeah, I like your thought process with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially where I am. What I was actually hoping to get, I'm not going to go into a long discussion about this, is card, I don't know if you know about it, but Breakthrough Skill was what I was hoping to get.
Oh my god. Yeah. I would have loved Breakthrough Skill.
But they gave us Memory Loss, so I guess they're like slowly power creeping to Breakthrough Skill. Right. Hopefully we'll get there in midterms, right?
I am excited for midterm.
I am so excited for midterm. But yeah, any final thoughts on the machines and Zane and Crowler cards we got from the Duo Academy box?
if you guys like these kind of decks, I highly recommend playing them. Just like know that they're more than likely just going to be like rogue style decks.
Yes.
I think that they have potential in themselves, and with it being in the right hands, you can perform well with them. But like, it's going to take a lot of testing, a lot of like format changing for these decks to actually see like decent competitive play.
Right. The thing with the box I've seen is that the skills themselves aren't going to make your deck good. You have to actually just pick individual cards from the box and see what they support. So we talked about like a Mechanical Chaser could potentially make Spellproof good with Just a Break, right? Those are both individual cards. Cyber Dragon, you mentioned, is going to be a staple in a lot of decks, so that's a really good card from the box. You know, something can probably be done with Cyber Valley or Future Fusion. Overload has some potential with any deck that has Cyber Dragon. So there are like decks that, not decks, cards that can like form good decks. But like if you're just going to think of it like Cocoon and think that just playing the skill is going to tell you exactly what deck to play, that's not how it's going to work.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's an interesting thought process too.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, just look at the best cards, because the skills, honestly, like these 4 skills especially, probably aren't gonna be like, I wouldn't take them into a big tournament and expect a top.
Right.
So there it is. But again, like with everything else, you know, there's always kitchen table formats or locals or fun things you could take like non-competitive decks to, like very rogue or meme decks to, and just have fun with it, right? So at least Speed Duels has that going for it.
I'm actually very excited for this format in general.
Yeah, me too. So once again, format, $100 tournament, huge tournament. It's going to be the biggest Speed Duel tournament we've had in a long time. Nothing's gone over $100 for a while. That's free entry. So
yeah, free entry tournament. Let's win some money, guys.
Let's spend some money for us.
So, hey, they didn't need to know about that part.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, Toxin's YouTube channel will be in the description as well as the Discord where you can join the tournament. My Twitch, where the tournament will be streamed, will be in the Discord. But hey, I think we're done here. So there is one more box review video left, and that one will focus mostly on Axel and Chaz, as well as any staples that I didn't pick up already. So unless you've got any closing thoughts.
No, sir. I just hope everybody has a good day, and I'll see them next time.
All right. Well, with that, Terramaster out.
Bye-bye.